Good morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. Just noticing that we had this weird zero length map log. That's new. All right. So I was working on seed files. These really aren't going to be relevant until we actually get a seed, which could be quite a while. So this is almost a different thing. Right now, is time. We have token zoom in there. Map log is time zoom coordinates. So current is TZXY. This is based on punctuated history, where we have routine and regular complete resets, so it's reasonable to treat it as one unit. You have your list of times. You can pretty much always fetch something for that. It kind of works nicely with the file system structure. Problems. Well, actually, the main problem here, well, the main problem is that keyframe size grows very large. We have to do expiration management. As part of that. To stop loading things from previous keyframes, which means we need to track last updated for each tile separately from the keyframe itself. And yeah, we have to load the, right now the strategy is load the entire thing. We could make that lazy, and that could work in with this. We could do master keyframe record. Which might still have that, has some sort of large keyframe index file. Which would be something like, well, probably TZ. Problems. Okay, so could be large. Oh, and so we do have the 404 for missing tiles. So that's actually an advantage of this. And we still kind of have to do this, but we don't have to. I need to implement lazy loading of tiles. Actually, I probably need to implement lazy loading of tiles regardless, because, well, if we manage expiration, maybe that could be avoided. Other possible strategy. individual tile histories. So that looks like DXY. And it doesn't really matter, but this gives us a DXY like index.txt. So this doesn't have. This will still require lazy loading. I mean, certain tiles could get large. Certainly Rift tiles would have a lot of history. But we wouldn't really have to do expiration. We wouldn't really have. I mean, they would have their individual timestamps. Individual tiles could be large-ish. The big thing with this, well, we still have 404 missing tile. We have multiple fetches. Index, keyframe, maybe map log. Of course, anything keyframe based is going to have the keyframe plus map log problem. But right off the bat, this like doubles our number of web requests. The other thing about this that we can't manage time groups at file system level. So right now, I can see we have this timestamp, this timestamp, this timestamp, and if I need to like get some new data, I see that maybe this is processed at a different time. I synchronize that directory and it's all updated. Or I upload that directory. Individual tile histories are kind of fragile. It works well enough for incremental updates, but it really can only be updated in an incremental way. I could do a hybrid where the tile data was stored under timestamps. That lets me upload the data like that. But I still have this like suitable tile index somewhere. And so far, these are all the ways that I have thought of to do. Like you either do it by coordinate or you do it by time. The primary unit of organization. Individual tile histories could potentially use different breakpoint levels for your tiles with different levels of busyness. Although you probably wouldn't do it larger groups than the source data. Mm. All right, so I got 23,000 files from our 1 week of ARC, which made me think that my current strategy of always loading the entire thing is not going to hold up if, the period of relevancy for the data, it's a week. It's like on server restart, if it hasn't been seen for 7 days, it can be cleared. We don't know exactly when the server restarts are. So we'd probably have to do something like estimate 2 weeks. So is that going to be 6,000 tiles? I mean, probably there's some overlap. So as we process each input file, or each, chunk of time, there's probably a smaller subset of that that got touched in every time span. So I was saying load the entire thing. I don't know that that will work when there's that many tiles going on, or it will start to become very laborious. I guess expiration management should be after a certain time, which we have to have the last updated time for each tile, where we get complicated. If we keep track of that in a master keyframe record, we have to load up that big index, but then we can skip all the 404s off the edges. When we're doing data processing, kind of want to lazy load only the tiles that we need to modify. And then we have at least a 23,000 record file. But that will sort of implicitly give us a last updated time for a tile, so at some point you can drop them out when they get old enough. Hmm. Here's a question. Does the map log version of this care about the prior state? For floors, it does. Oh, the other thing. Well, I think I may have. I haven't done any pre-work on player IDs. Oh? No one was responsible. Or maybe, yeah, there's a lot of. That's probably a tutorial going down. Um, 1970s. No. Oh yeah, this is a tutorial. Well, that makes it easier to identify tutorials, I guess. Now, what the heck is this? Yeah, player unknown. Right, this was a reset in a. Wait, so how? Maybe that was a leftover death record? Is one of these pile of bones? Well, that's not gonna be pile of bones. Backpack. Yeah, this is like someone's entire clothing set. There's another backpack. So this is right after a restart. The new map logs should have started right after a restart. Looking at these in the wrong order? We had our big long thing. Maybe this is like a forced drop of some sort? Yeah, there's all the negative ones. So that player, like, picked something up. Picked up whatever was there, put down an empty bucket. Picked it up again. Somebody else put down a 31. Gooseberry. I wonder if that's a swap operation on the tile. Swap that location for a bucket, swap that location for a gooseberry. Yeah, because I'm seeing these in pairs a lot. No, wait, why would it? It was a swap operate. Oh, because you're picking up what was there, but you'd have to go back in history to see what that was. Although, in this case, we know that there was something there. Hmm. And so for map change purposes, I could probably compress those. I don't really need to know that there was a... I guess it tells me it was a pickup, but yeah, you'd have to do... Okay, so that's a tutorial. That's a tutorial. That's a tutorial. Yeah, these look like swap operations. I don't know if we get like a delayed startup on this one. Maybe that was like a container decaying or something and dumping all its contents. Although it's awfully close to where this person was doing something. Yeah, this is like all one operation. And like a player maybe picks up some of this stuff, swaps something. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure I can ignore the negative ones. I could potentially look for if something else showed up in the next cycle to filter those out. Uh, so we've got player IDs, and map logs with the ones. Anyway, that will be an easier thing to handle when we know what the heck. So I'm still going to need some sort of like master index, at least for the purpose of expiration. I guess I could do a per tile tracker. Master keyframe is the most straightforward implementation of what I'm doing. It lets us reference back to older tiles without necessarily having to load and writing them. I was leaning towards the individual tile histories, but now I'm thinking about, right now, if I get a new batch of data, I can prepare that directory and sync that directory, publish that directory. And there's a couple of index files that get managed, but it stands on its own very well. Individual tile histories create a lot of little indexes. And I could still go back to time-oriented, like raw data. And I was originally thinking, okay, you have a tile all in one place. It has an index file, it has all of its little data pieces. But that means that like file system operations for data updates completely impractical. That's going to be multiple fetches, not only for viewing the map, but also data processing is going to need to do the index to see if there's a tile there and what the previous timestamp was. And then it's going to have to fetch the actual keyframe data if it's there. I guess I can still do the file index thing. Well, got a time step there that would all tiles. It would give you a huge list of files so you would know what time steps were there. Hmm. And if we did have a map reset, I'd have to go touch every single tile to put in a time for a frame 0. What? The thing that worries me about this is that we have this sort of, we're going to have many, many thousands of these little stateful index files. And that could be kind of hard to manage if things ever went wrong. This will largely be limited to, once one is right, it's right. As you add new data, there's like a master index, but that could be rebuilt. Probably. So if I have a master keyframe record, we'll have to see how big a difference that it makes in the actual like relevant tiles at any given moment. And we don't necessarily want to load everything in the directory path. We would look at our last keyframe. We would look at the timestamps referenced in there. Maybe not load anything over 2 weeks old. And we would only load a tile if we had new data there, which is going to be a big change in processing. Because right now we don't have to do any like in between data loading. I guess you can take the data we currently have, process it as is, and then do a remerge or just an overlay. It'll be a little bit less optimal. So you won't be able to make certain like previous tile content size decisions. Although that's the object size stuff is a little bit suspect anyway in some cases because from doing overage. You never know what natural tiles could be. So we have an extra file to get given a timestamp, but that potentially saves us all 404s. I'm not actually sure how often 404s happen. Uh, no, it's favicon. So that's beyond the point where we're doing data. if anything, it might be more common at closer zooms. Those are all the objects. Where is... That's actually a pretty good hit ratio right now. People are really getting out and about. Now, I mean, you would eventually get beyond the map, but yeah. Go out there and there's nothing. But that's not the place you're typically going to be looking. Well, that does remind me, I saw that at a bell tower. Okay, yeah, so these two. Are these in Old Towns? Okay, yes. You were in an old town. Used to look like that. And I think I was in this town in its new mountainy Arctic incarnation. I actually saw that bell tower. Hmm. So 404s might actually not be an issue for areas of interest. I'm a little bit worried about opaqueness of the format here. You just sort of incrementally updating every one of these little tile movies. Maybe I could do something in every tile somewhere. Every tile, so that you could always reconstruct the index from this. And so one of the ideas that I had with file files is that you could potentially do the splits differently. It's partly a file size issue because some of the map logs, especially, can get quite large. So they could sort of run on their own individual splits there. Now, the problem there is if you did need to rerun one particular map log file, You wouldn't necessarily be able to easily find all of the pieces that were related to that. So right now, I'm mostly doing a programmatic direct upload to S3. Hmm. So if I redid my hybrid file system a little bit, data processing locally to avoid the remote fetch of previous state problem. It has been kind of nice to be able to operate on either of them, though. So what does it look like? I'm trying to manage both my data updates and the amount of data we have to fetch, the amount of data we have to process. So to display any given timestamp, right now I'm getting an arc history. I was planning to replace that with a span history. Well, so there's whip keyframes, and then there's current. No resumption or big giant file reprocess. uh, no expiration at all. This is completely untenable. Uh, so we have arcs.json. This is going to be spans.json defining what it is. This is going to be spans and the individual t dot whatever files. Yeah, so this is interesting because if you want to display something on the map, you just go fetch the tile, see if it has data there. This could actually be interesting with a more interactive server. You could ask for any timestamp and it would just give you the right stuff. It would also have to return some metadata about when you had to ask for new stuff. I could structure it such that each tile data file would do that without a tile index. For display, yes. For resumption of state, yeah, because you'd have to have something there at every timestamp to do it. I mean, I could go write out like an almost empty file for every time step that said, "Oh, no tile here. Go fetch this one instead." That would still be uploading a bunch of files. It'd be very, very small. Oh, and we're gonna have to. That's gonna be multiple uploads. We're going to have to, every time we touch one of those files, we're going to have to download, update, and upload the index. So if you're trying to manage the amount of stuff you're both uploading and downloading, I mean, this sounds kind of cool to treat each tile as its own little movie. But you got to have that metadata. Now, one advantage of this is that, assuming we have a moving world, which we seem to have sort of a moving world, this will sort of gradually expire tiles from relevance, so these index files will stop growing at some point. Master keyframes run the risk of unbounded growth. Although if that becomes a problem, I could, have some sort of like current and pointer to previous, go back in history. Chunk it somehow. Or maybe similar to Zoom's chunk it by timestamp. Somehow divide that by month or something. Oh, I wonder if the clothing we saw at -1 was a expiration of a very old grave. Because that would be a system processed thing on startup. Hmm. So when uploading, I'm going through each change. I need to, at some point, merge the new keyframe with the old keyframe. The map logs themselves. Now, I was trying to do some optimization, particularly when you're zoomed out. You don't actually need to, if it was a small object and there was a small object before, you don't actually need to update that. So I guess the zoom outs map logs are about their previous data bit. So those would need to upload, those would need to load keyframes. Keyframes would need to load the previous state to merge it. And the loading of those files, I don't see a way to avoid, but in a daily incremental situation, load every tile once, write every tile once. Yeah, so if the number of files that I have to upload is an issue for data processing, that also makes this bad for the data processing side. If that saved me something downloading stuff, that'd be cool. But every single tile is going to have to fetch its index and then its individual data frames. It's sort of cool that it's independent, but it's also a lot of extra requests. Suggests that we need to, when we process something, we need to write out a big keyframe record with all of the files that were in it. And my current strategy for loading previous state involves reloading every file in the previous keyframe. Oh, this is actually going to be easy, I think. Because for the map logs, that's going to be an individual set of things for every zoom level. With our list of spans, zooms are pretty much constant. So when we want to process a particular time or a particular map log update, a particular chunk, we don't want to just load everything. We would load the previous would only want to load keyframe files for things that you yourself are going to touch. Then you would need to maintain properly timestamped references for any tiles that are still relevant but not yet expired. That could get a little bit hairy. I don't think that changes fundamentally for the individual tile files. You're generally still going to be batch processing the entire update series. Any tile that gets touched has to be loaded. And then you have to update all the individual indexes. There's multiple levels to this. There is when we break files ourselves, in which case we can sort of maintain state. And that's relatively easy to test. And there are multiple files. Which we actually have some information about daily updates, but I don't currently have. Well, I'd have to process the data for the previous state, which that is actually took quite a while. Or that might be a little bit of an offline thing. So for every timestamp we write, we need a master index. Problem one. Although I guess, when you're scrubbing, you're going to have to go fetch all those master indexes, but you're not going to have to do it for every tile. That's also going to be that's going to be a little bit, that's per zoom. That means individual tiles are going to have to defer processing until the master index gets. All right, so this is still configured for test mode. We're doing that. I don't think we need to do that right now. Multiple files, one seed. smaller data set, but how small? Oh, were you one of the broken seeds? Eight, 7, 6, 0, 2, 4. No, I don't think you were a broken seed. That's not too huge. So at least get us some multi-file stuff going on. All right, we kind of like you to shut up. So, first thing we need. I don't need these indexes for map logs. I mean, that lets me avoid the 404s. But I never need to resume a map log. Oh. Oh. There are no placements at finer zooms. It's not as big as a map log. But that means that for map logs to do resumption, maybe map logs don't do resumption. What are they actually looking at state-wise? Map log placement. Okay. Floor removals need to know the previous state. Then again, those are already a little bit broken. This is for the new object. We had an idea of the previous state. It's a small object. We're going to call it a 0. Oh, you? If it's occupied, write a 0. If it's not, skip it entirely. That might actually not work in the presence of natural objects. Now, so from a map log perspective, possibility of natural objects is roughly equivalent to the possibility of any previous player placement. So that might be workable. The map logs would just always do a blind write. And we could still check for if last known was empty for all the small objects. If it was known to be in that state in this time span. So objects and floors are key placement. No, actually, overs do like always go. So map logs might not need resumption at all. I implemented resumption for map logs. You would have to do something with key place. Base. Oh, wait. I set the zoom to 24. Those tile coordinates are. That's just flat out wrong. Actually, when outputting the map log, I don't think we. It's just going to be the series of changes that happen. And we lose a little bit of sort of optimization, but if it's a brand new tile, we have possible natural objects eventually. And then output final placement is going to have to implement resumption to get an accurate picture of things. I guess I should actually run that on some. Oh, you actually still touched a fair number of tiles. This one touched a lot fewer. All right, so that is still correct code. Zooms don't match, kind of same as natural objects. But I think I actually have to do something with this. Map logs, a skip all objects. If possibly unknown. On keyframes, we come down here, we have all this stuff, we have right tiles. Tiled object, tiled floors. We have the information for the path. It's going to be a little bit like that. I'm going to need a read index too. So putting these together doesn't really matter. I don't actually use that actually can. Well, I was doing a write before. Oh, is that from? Oh, that was from. You're just dir. Okay, but this is for each because we have to stick all the stuff in there. This only has one zoom, but it's still going to be about what we've got. So the set, I shouldn't need a progress bar for this one. I do need the individual coordinate. Maybe I do have a path here. So this inverts things a little bit. I might still need some path calculation here. What do I want to write into this? Well, we've still got our old file resumption. I think output path can be assumed. The information we need are which tile X and tile Y we have. I think I might have to do I'm going to have to track for older tiles. We're going to need a timestamp. This is only going to be set.each. So this is where we're going to have to remember the previous index somewhere. And we're going to have to say if we're empty, I'm going to have to do the update tracking somewhere. But this gives us some kind of baseline to work with. So that actual file break did take a little bit there. I forget how small I had to make this. For that particular thing to work out. Okay, so that gets you down to 3. Oh, but this doesn't require a reload because it's all processing the same thing. We're not worried about reload just yet. We're worried about having some data to practice with. I could potentially do more with that. Potentially sort it for convenience. Now, you see, this is set.each, so I would have to do... If that makes any sense. Oh, I left map logs on. I don't actually need you right now.